Welcome to lessons 1 and 2 of Construction Spanish, where we're going to go over the basics of what you will need to go over in terms of basic vocabulary and basic phrases for Spanish in the construction work environment. So the first lesson we're going to review over basics and greetings. So to start off, you always need to know how to say yes, no, and maybe. So yes is pronounced si, no is no, or with an accent just no. Maybe is quizás. Next, thank you is gracias. To say no thank you, you just put a no in front of thank you. It's just no gracias. To say please, it's por favor. Next, to say hello, it's hola. Now remember that anytime there's a word in Spanish that begins with the letter H, you never pronounce it. It's always silent. So that's why you spell hola, H-O-L-A, but you pronounce it like O-L-A, hola. Next, goodbye is adios. Nice to meet you is mucho gusto. Next, to say good morning, afternoon, and evening, they're pretty similar, but they're slightly different for each one. Let's take a look. So it says buenos días, and usually endings in Spanish match, but sometimes the words are a little bit different. In this case, they're a little bit different, but it's important to memorize these particular phrases because you're pretty much going to say them every day. So, good morning is buenos días. Good afternoon, buenos tardes. Good evening, buenas noches. Next, we're going to go over basically how to say how are you formally and informally. So this is important definitely when you meet somebody who's new, or maybe if you're meeting somebody for, I don't know, the sixth time today, you don't need to be quite so formal. But if you just met somebody or you want to speak to somebody respectfully, you're going to add this word usted at the end of your question. So to say how are you is ¿Cómo está usted? ¿Cómo está usted? How are you? And that's formally. To say something informally, or maybe just to a friend or somebody you know very well, you would just say, ¿Cómo está? Next, to say, how is everyone? Say if you're talking to a group of people and you want to say it respectfully, you would just say, ¿Cómo están ustedes? Now, just like how we changed it from formally, we had usted, to informally, we just took off usted. To say, how is everyone? And informally, you would just take off ustedes. You would just say, ¿Cómo están? Next, going over what to call people or what to call yourself. My name is, you would say mi nombre es, and then your name. What is your name? To say it nicely is ¿Cómo se llama? And what is their name? Like if you're trying to get somebody's attention and you don't know their name, you would say ¿Cómo se llama él? It's just kind of a general reference to a random person, say you're pointing to. Next, we're going to review over directions and hiring. Okay, so in this case we're talking about this, and by that I mean this one. So say if you're pointing at something very close to you, say, I don't know, your shoe, you would say este, so something very close to you. Something is a little bit further away from you, you would say ese, or that. And to say something really far away, say something maybe a mile away, to say over there, you would say aquel. Next, in terms of general directions, to say left is izquierda. Now, some words in Spanish are a little bit difficult to pronounce if English is your first and only language. But remember that in Spanish, if you pronounce each syllable and take it slowly, everyone will understand you, and each word is completely understandable. So if you break this apart, izquierda, izquierda. So if you break it apart and then say it really quickly together, everything will be fine and understandable. Next, to say right is derecha. To say straight ahead is a little bit similar, it's just the ending is different, is derecho. Next, where is, so if you're asking where is something, you would start the question is with ¿Dónde está? And then whatever you're asking about. Next, in terms of hiring, some pretty common phrases that you would have to say is you need to hire somebody or you don't need somebody. So to say I need a particular person, you would say necesito un or una, and then whatever kind of person. In the next slide, we're going to go over the different types of people you can hire, and the reason why I made a slight note about the difference between un and una. We'll go over that in the next slide. And just to say I don't need somebody, you would just add no in front of it. No necesito, and that O indicates I, no necesito un or una, and then whatever person. And the next common phrase that I thought to throw in there, especially for construction working, is if people have tools. So for this question, you would say tenga las herramientas. So just like with what we said with hola, and words that begin with the letter H, you never pronounce words in Spanish, or pronounce the letter H that begins at the beginning of a word. So, next. Let's see. So like I said a little bit earlier, the ending of Spanish words are very important. So some end in A's, some end in O's, some end in just random letters. Frequently, though, they'll end in an O or an A. So let's see. In this case, we have contractor is contratista, plasterer is a yesero, an electrician is an electricista, a landscaper or a gardener is a paisajero or a jardinero. This is the other case of a silent letter in Spanish, is the letter J. Anytime you see the letter J in Spanish, you're going to pronounce it like an H. So that's why it's pronounced paisajero and jardinero. Next, roofer is a techero, a bricklayer is an albañil, a driver is a camionero, a plumber is plomero, repairman is reparador, and a general worker is a trabajador. Let's see, next. So kind of putting the two slides together in terms of I need and I don't need, and then types of people you can hire. So in this case it says I need a plumber. So necesito, I need un plomero. And the second sentence says I need an electrician, necesito una electricista. So what is the difference between un and una? Well, in the first sentence, we have the word plomero, it ends in an O. So anytime you have a word that ends in an O, you're going to need un, or a. But if the word you're talking about ends in an A, you're going to need a on una. So, necesito una electricista, or necesito un plomero. And to say you don't need something, or someone, you just put no in front of it. So I don't need a plasterer, no necesito un yesero, so un goes with o, and I don't need a contractor, no necesito una contratista. So that's why una and contratista go together. The A's go together, and the O and un go together. And that ends these first two lessons.